Okay, dynamics. What does that mean? Playing with dynamics means being able to control the volumes, okay? Being able to control each limb individually so that you can mix the volumes of each limb so that you can get a good sounding groove with the appropriate balance between volume of the snare and the hi-hat and the bass drum, all that stuff. Like volume in a rehearsal space, volume like rehearsing with other people, if it's an acoustic rehearsal and you're playing huge drums and everyone else is like not mic'd, or concert or whatever, anything, recording, anything. Just playing with dynamics means being able to control the volume. Okay? I would say something that is hard about dynamics on the drums as opposed to other instruments is that this instrument is made up of a bunch of different instruments all brought together, okay? And you can see that here because I'm not even using a bass drum, I'm using a cajon as a bass drum, okay? So this is like a separate instrument all on its own. What I'm getting at is the fact that you, with a stick, you can play on the cymbal, you can play it quietly like that, right? Or you can smash it and it'll be a completely different sound, okay? You can also play the snare drum, and if I play with the same energy as I did on the ride cymbal on the snare, okay, and with the snares on, like the snare is just automatically louder, even though you know, it's the same thing. And there's a lot that goes into this, like the angle of this ride obviously changes the amount of gravity that acts on the stick and like whatever, blah blah blah. And this is like more down facing, right? All of these things, but also the material. This cymbal is made out of metal. This is made out of a plastic, whatever, synthetic plastic fiber, which is stretched over like a metal casing. That's why like a snare drum is so loud, you know, because it's like shallow. It's just made to be loud, like the way it's made. It's just always loud. That's one of the tricky things about actually playing a snare drum. And the hi-hat also, like, it depends where you play the hi-hat. Like if you play with this part and you like really hammer it out, it could be super loud. But if you play with the tip, it's pretty quiet. If you play with it sloshy, open like this, it'll be loud. If you play with the tip sloshy, it's going to be pretty much the same. What I'm getting at is there are so many things here that, like, there are so many factors. It's like you are a factor, of course, and how hard or soft you play each part of the instrument. That's a factor, but also the material that these drums are made out of. And if you have toms, for example, you know that the what is it called? The stretch, the tension. That's what it is. The tension on each head of each tom, for example, in comparison to the snare, they're going to be a lot more loose. So if you like whack the snare and then you whack the floor tom, there's going to be a lot of difference because the floor tom is way looser than the snare drum, and also the floor tom is like a whole different frequency. It's much lower. It's not as piercing to your ears. So there's many aspects to why something is louder, something is quieter, okay? That's like, if you want to overthink things, okay? What you need to focus on to build dynamics, for example, like I'm playing in this space, I always have to play quietly. So you're going to notice that I can't even demonstrate to you what hitting a snare drum loudly sounds like, because I'm always playing quietly. And that's actually not the best situation. But what you want to do to practice your dynamics is you want to practice some like tapping exercises and full stroke exercises on each element of your drum set, because then you're gonna learn, like, oh, if I tap this much on the ride, it's not quite enough, but if I tap this much on the snare, that's actually enough if I'm comping in a jazz setting, for example. Okay, that's why it's so important to obviously practice on the practice pad to work out new things and stickings and work on your technique, but also this is just one singular surface, and you need to be practicing on the drums to have a real feeling of how each element responds. This is why electric drums, like electronic drums, are not my favorite. For a while, when I was starting to play drums, I played on electric drums, and they are so limiting, you know. They're wonderful in different ways, but they are so limiting in even learning the instrument, because you don't actually learn the instrument, which is too bad. So this is something you should consider if you are playing on an electric kit, and if you have been playing on an electric kit for a long time, you should consider if it's possible for you to get some kind of even access to an acoustic kit once a week. If you can play somewhere on an acoustic kit, you'll understand what I mean, and that'll help you practice those things that you can't practice on an electric kit or on a practice pad. Okay? So all of that to say, basically your dynamics are going to vary because of that, but also your dynamics are going to vary because of the height of your stick. If I want a really quiet sound, I need to practice my taps, and I need to practice this for a long time to get comfortable. Okay, if I'm practicing these like mid strokes, basically dropping the stick from this height, it's going to give me a different volume, right? All I'm doing is dropping. And if I drop from this height, maybe on the practice pad we can't hear the difference, but if I was playing on the snare drum, you would be able to hear the difference. Okay? Okay? And the important part is being able to switch between all of these. So what you can do is play 2 taps, 2 mid strokes, 2 full strokes. Okay, you can create an exercise like that for yourself. And then basically do that, try that. Don't actually practice on each element of the drums, because I feel like some of these things you will never do on some of these surfaces. But it's super important to practice the different heights, and it's super important to realize what a difference it makes to play with the tip of the stick on the cymbals, especially, because on the drums you can't really play with this part. So on the cymbals, playing with the tip versus playing with the shaft, like this, or somewhere in between, where you can also do this thing, where this whole thing contacts the cymbal at the same time. That's like a technique also. Okay, so both on the hi-hat, on the whatever crash, ride, whatever you have, just experiment with that and realize that. Okay, a lot of these things like dynamics, whatever, you need to figure out the physicality of this instrument first before you can actually get into dynamics. Okay, I hope that was helpful, and it was a little bit all over the place, but I hope that gives you some perspective on how you can approach playing the drums more dynamically. Okay, if you have questions, drop them below.